I've always been somewhat of a worrywart. In fact, it wasn't unusual for me to spend an hour in bed, fretting about the day's events or recalling some cringy thing I did in class before I could actually go to sleep. Christmas Eve was no exception, and I found myself yet again worrying alone in bed, staring at the ceiling. Christmas time was supposed to be a happy time, but all I could do was huddle under my Star Wars blanket and worry about the dumb things I did and said. Like, was I polite enough when I called the cops on that panhandler? Should I maybe have asked Stacy if she wanted to see my penis before I sent her that picture? God, I'm so awkward. I hope next year will be different. Maybe I'll wake up on New Year's and finally have the resolve to finish reading 12 Rules for Life by Jordan B. Peterson and finally become a confident young man. That's when I heard it. A muffled sound from the hall outside. It sounded like something walking, but it was off somehow. Like they were wearing heavy boots or some kind of Swedish clogs on their feet. I tried to get out of bed and reach for my cell phone, but I just couldn't. My body, it wouldn't move, and I couldn't even speak. All I could do was keep my eyes peeled and whimper like a dumb baby. I decided to stay quiet and hope that whatever it was, it would just leave me alone. But the footsteps continued. It was slowly creeping its way toward my room. That's when I realized this had to be that thing I heard all those scary stories about. What was it called again? Sleep paralysis? Thinking this was all just some dumb illusion my brain came up with made me feel a little bit better. I started to repeat to myself, "It isn't real," hoping to somehow wake up from this dream. I hadn't heard the footsteps in some time. Maybe it had worked, but then why couldn't I move my body? That's when I heard the door open. I couldn't move my head much, and I could just barely see the edges of whatever it was in the doorway. Were those horns I saw? What could it possibly be? No, it's just a dream. It has to be just a dream. I was somehow able to move my head slightly. As scary as it might have been to look at, not seeing it fully was even worse. But it was gone. I couldn't see any monster. My room was completely normal. Was I finally awake and free from this nightmarish nightmare? It must have been a dream, I thought, as I breathed a sigh of relief. But then it hit me. Why was the door wide open? I always sleep with it closed. Then, at the end of the bed, I saw it slowly wrap its horrid, clawed hands around the top of the footboard. It felt like ages as its head slowly moved up into view. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't human. Its horned visage was finally clear in the moonlight. It looked like some kind of evil demon. It stared back at me. Its eyes had a cruel, malevolent hunger to them. It looked at me the same way I would look at ice cream or birthday cake. I tried to move, to run away from it all, but to no avail. I was stuck in this room, alone with this predator. All I could do was wet myself in fear. Then it started to lift up my dinosaur blanket up, and then it started to crawl into my bed. I could feel it slowly make its way between my legs, but then it stopped. Maybe it felt my urine covering the bed and was so disgusted that it considered to leave, but I was wrong. I felt my pants get pulled down and the warm breath of the creature on my genital. I tried to beg, anything but my genital, I tried to cry. Then I felt it. First a light touch, a gentle stroke of my penis and also my balls. Even with a beast in my bed, the blood was flowing, and I had no way to fight my newfound erection. The beast wouldn't relent. Its light, playful touch became harder and more forceful. But then, it suddenly stopped. Maybe it was bored. Maybe it finally decided to move on to someone with a nicer penis. Then I felt it, the wet touch of the creature's tongue, treating me like a lollipop. Then its mouth. This thing was wrapping its lips around me, it wouldn't take too much more till I bust. I didn't want to, but I'm just a normal guy and couldn't fight it for long. This continued for 10 seconds or so. I was scared I would bust at any moment. Then it stopped. It was gone. I'd never been so relieved. That's when I realized I could move. I was finally free. I jumped out of my bed and ran to my light switch. Turning it on, I quickly looked around to see if the creature was there. To my relief, it was gone. It had just been some crazy sleep paralysis dream. I couldn't help but shed a few tears, but I was just so happy that it wasn't real and that I was safe. I swore that this ordeal had made me a new man. No more incest porn for me, I said out loud. So long, Pornhub, and hello, NoFap. I had the urge to get out my unread copy of 12 Rules for Life by Jordan B. Peterson and read it in one go, but then I noticed the dark stain on my Spider-Man blanket. I guess the part where I wet myself had really happened. It was a pretty scary dream after all. I thought I should clean up before I get started on my new lease for life. I grabbed my Scooby-Doo blanket and tossed it onto the floor. Got started on removing my Harry Potter bedsheets, but something was wrong. To my shock, there was another stain below it, a strange milky goo near the footboard. But where could it have come from, I thought. Something inside me made me reach out and touch the stain, just to see if it was real, I guess. It was warm to the touch, and it had a salty taste to it. I realized it wasn't a dream. That demon was really here. That's when I heard it. The sound of sleigh bells and a heavy thud from the roof, as if something big had just landed on top of my building. That's when I remembered what my gypsy great-grandmother told me when I was younger. On Christmas Eve, first comes Krampus, then comes Santa.